this conversation on the perspective of COVID-19. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, Daryl.
You know, we met in passing, I think it was late 2019. And I don't know if you remember this, but I was doing some work in the marketing department, and you just stuck your head in the room we were working in and boldly just asked, "What are you guys up to?" And like you own the place. And I asked the people I was working with, who was that? And they went on to tell me about the great things that you were doing in the community. Recipient in 2017 of Leadership of Manitoba Award. You are the program director for Tech Manitoba, and you have started a new podcast. Not so new, because I understand that podcasts don't normally get past their 11th episode, and I think you're on 14. Is that right?
Yeah, we just started season 2. We're on episode 15. Just got released yesterday, and yeah, we interview startups in the Canadian prairies about what it's like to start a business here.
Awesome. That's perfect for our conversation. Over the last 6 to 8 weeks, all of our lives have been changed with COVID-19. All the protocols that have been put in place for everyone's safety, and that naturally affects all of us, and it has affected all of us. And I just want to talk a little bit about. Speak to what you were doing, what your life was looking like on a daily basis before things started to change, because you were moving and shaking. You've got projects going on. So just talk a little bit about, what was going on that all of a sudden had to come to a halt and have to change. And please.
Yeah. So from a work perspective, we run a lot of programs that involve events in person. So training on technology, because I work at Tech Manitoba, so training tech, and that's a lot of it's in-person training and networking events. And other than running them, I was also happily attending them frequently. And then with the podcast, it naturally led to a lot of opportunities with hosting and emceeing and running events from that side of things. And so I would be, out of the house until 9:30 every night at an event or hosting an event. And that really obviously changed quite quickly. But it's interesting. There's certainly a lot of events happening online where you can still have a voice and stand out if you'd like to. But it's been surprisingly refreshing to have a little bit more time to myself. So, which is really interesting, because at a glance, like, I am in the end of the spectrum when it comes to an extreme extrovert. I actually derive energy off of conversations with people.
Right.
So yeah, it's been a change.
So you've transitioned from in-person to events to online events. So walk us through this. Everything basically comes down to a stop, right? The economic machine starts grinding to a stop. Toilet paper's flying off the shelf. Orders to stay inside or highly recommended suggestions to stay inside. We're trying to flatten the curve, and your world stops. So all of these events all of a sudden get canceled. And what is that 1 to 2 week period look like for you? Like, what does your calendar look like? And then all of a sudden it changes. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, partly it was a moment of canceling, literally deleting everything in my calendar for the next week, thinking, what am I going to do with all this spare time? And am I going to go crazy because I'm stuck at home by myself? I live alone. I have no kids. So it was really thinking I'm going to get totally bored. But I feel kind of lucky, because I feel like naturally I have this adaptability. Maybe it's from having done a lot of travel or just worked for startups in the past, things like that. But I actually didn't give myself an opportunity to kind of sit for those 2 weeks. My mind immediately went to, yep, everything's stopping. That means people are going to need different support right now. How do I do that? And right away, just saying how can I help other people? I have a house, I have, a great place during this. I still have a job. So knowing that I still have a job and that I'm okay, how can I use that job to immediately pivot and help other people? And the second day into working from home, we canceled all of our free computer classes that were normally in person for people who computers at all and said to my team, how are we going to help these people? Because you and I can still do this. We can still do a video chat and feel some connection and get the information that we need and still keep working. But there are people who don't know how to use computers at all, don't have a computer. They were used to using like a resource center or a library. And those numbers are way higher than Canadians might think when it comes to who those people are. And so immediately said, how can we help someone else? And I don't have, I'm not a frontline worker. I'm not like someone in medicine who can help in some of those more like obvious ways. I don't have personal funds, to spend on massive charity projects. But what I could do is pivot what we were doing to get refurbished hardware and computers into people's hands to help those families and individuals who would otherwise feel really disconnected. Like I looked at me and said, I'm going to feel a little bit of boredom, but I can still connect 17 ways from Sunday with tech, right? And the things that I'm used to using actively like this. But there's people who don't have that. And so I like being busy. And I think I just replaced in-person busy with helping the community busy. And that's keeping me sane too. So like I'm benefiting from it at the same time.
Right. So you're pouring into people in a different way. Can you get into details? Like what did it look like, rallying up all these, I heard you say refurbished computers, figuring out who's going to benefit from them the most. And I suspect that part of it has to do with, so everybody's home educating. And then there's some kids that are going to have the tools at home and some kids that need the tools at home. Was that the target? Or the greatest beneficiary, or what did that demographic look like?
Yeah, it's interesting. Our program typically was to help adults in the community, actually. It wasn't necessarily to help kids because a lot of kids were using tech at schools and things like that already. But yeah, you're right. As soon as this happened where kids were now at home, they didn't have that like safe place of the school to use the computers and access tech there. And so certainly like it's in the news a lot, right? Students are trying to access homework and lessons and they can't do it because either they don't have connectivity or they don't have the hardware. But basically, again, to like many people's surprise, there is an assumption that like it's only these people that need it, but actually, that it's only our grandparents who don't have access to tech. And that's a really, really big subset in between. And the people who are hit the most are low income families of all backgrounds and demographics. But certainly there are a lot of like new Canadians, refugees, used to using programs in the community that are available for them for this learning, even like English language programs that many newcomers are going through. Now imagine like trying to, without technology, access timely information in a safe way without tech and with language barriers. So there's all these factors, right? And so we actually put it out as a call for nominations. That way we figured you could nominate yourself or someone else that you knew because we didn't want to leave people out. So that way, Daryl, you could have nominated, if you volunteer your time at a resource center or a support home of some kind, or your neighbor you knew was struggling, you could nominate somebody else even without them knowing. So that was able, I think, for us to open it up to really like all communities. And we also wanted to ensure it was all Manitoba, not just the major hubs. I think with school division conversations and a lot of that, we forget often like one thing that works here isn't going to work for remote and rural communities that have the added barrier of geography and broadband connectivity. So for them, again, like if someone knows of a community or knows of someone, we were trying to really like get the message into all these little areas of the province. And, we're happy to say that we sent a ton of computers way up north and all around when it was done. And now we're trying to pivot again so that it's a one-to-one program that never goes away. Like at first it was a one-off we thought will help. And the demand was so high that now, I'm working harder than usual because I'm trying to really like fill that gap that we're seeing right now of people struggling without the use of technology.
So you found a need. You were just trying to fill a need, during this transition, during this pivot that we're all going through, and then you found that there's a bigger opportunity to fill it permanently, and you're still in need of resources and yeah. What do you need? Just since we're speaking on it, what do you need?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the best call to action for people that might be listening is donate any old hardware you have. So old computers, iPads, other tech, phones, whatever you have, to Computers for Schools Manitoba, or there's Computers for Schools is across the country, depending where you're listening. But so in Manitoba, they're at 18 Terracon Place, and you can literally just drop it off at the back of their building during the day. You don't have to see anyone or touch anyone if you're worried still about the virus. So, and they'll quarantine the equipment for a while, they'll wipe it clean of everything, and then they refurbish it and get it back out to groups like ours or charities and not-for-profits that are trying to get them into the hands of people who need them right now.
Great, that's great cause. Thanks for that information. So
Yeah,
let's keep going. So you've got that on the go, and then how about your own personal? You know, how do you adapt? You said you're a really social person, and you obviously are. But how do you connect? How do you keep that sanity, going for yourself? And by the way, having kids doesn't mean you're sane either.
No, yeah,
crazy.
Different demands, right?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
It's been surprising. Like, again, I think I've just been able to channel my energy into other things. And video conversations are certainly helpful. Like we have regular like movie nights with friends where we chat with each other via video chat, and we turn our camera and like press play at the same time, and there are plugins you can use too to like basically watch, like there's that Netflix party or whatever it is.
Sure.
But we do it the old fashioned way, but because not everyone has the same tech at home. But yeah, things like that where you're still feeling like you're having rapport with friends, but it's certainly not the same as in-person interaction. Like I find myself really missing a hug, like physical contact, from friends and family. I mean, even like there's something about physical touch that I think is really unique and interesting. And so I think when you have family members in the house with you, at least that piece is still fulfilled. It comes with different challenges, I know. But living totally alone right now and having no physical interaction with humans at all, when I see someone meters away now, it's like I want to run up and hug. That's been like the weirdest part, the funniest thing. I knew I liked being around humans, but physical contact was like a different layer to it that now I'm thinking is so important.
Everybody will be walking magnets, just trying to keep away from each other.
Yeah, it's gonna be like both extremes, right? Still people who don't want to be near each other, and then me being like, "Come give me a hug." Right.
We'll respect wherever anyone's at.
Yeah.
Hey, Margaux, I wanted to read this to you. I thought this was really interesting. Saw it on LinkedIn a couple days ago by a business coach, and it says, "When things don't work, we're alone in dealing with our emotions. How we handle the negative energy determines the shape of our lives. Those who can't handle it may develop counterproductive behaviors and habits. Others learn to transform the negative energy into breakthroughs and lead much more successful lives."
Wow.
Yeah, I think that was well said and well thought through and crafted. You deal with so many, you're involved in the entrepreneurial community. And what is your perspective on how the entrepreneurs in Manitoba are processing the changes that they're going through and adapting and navigating? Are they, from your sense and from your conversations, are they struggling, or are they taking this as a head-on challenge and planning on coming up better and stronger than they were before? What have you seen?
It's so interesting with Start Podcast. So the podcast we're talking about in our intro here, we interview startups in the Canadian prairies, and we have certainly like a slightly smaller startup ecosystem than some of the other major cities across the country. But I think that the pattern is really similar no matter what, no matter where you are. It's been really interesting to see, like, some podcast guests that we've had on, are really excited to talk about how they're pivoting or how they're like rising to the occasion, to the quote that you just read there. And others are certainly, potentially going to be closing the doors, and it's really sad. But, I think it's interesting if you, as an entrepreneur, many like startup style, that community of entrepreneur, they're so adaptable. Like they see every challenge as something that is surmountable. And so they are in this situation, like coming up with just like clever ways to change what they're doing and pivot, because when you're starting something from the ground up, they've already been doing that. Like it's not as though their product was super easy to become popular day one. So it's just one more hurdle that I think many of them are really cleverly challenging and getting around. And The hardest part for many of them, I think, is figuring out like how to navigate the government supports that are out there. Because I think that can be really tricky, like not totally understanding where to go or how to apply. There's a lot of verbiage, right? That kind of thing.
Sure.
There are organizations out there that can help with that. But it's really, on the flip side, there's new entrepreneurs popping up because maybe people have more time on their hands, or because they're faced with a challenge and they're the type that want to rise to that occasion. And so ideation, like that phase of just like coming up with an idea and testing it in the market, that phase, we're seeing way more of it. Like I was just on a call with some startup hubs from across the country, and they were all saying the same thing. Like the number of new potential prospects to like their accelerator programs and their incubators and their, more of the incubation and ideation phases, but they're seeing all these new kind of people popping up. And so I think those are those people who say, there's a challenge and I'm going to figure out how to solve it. And they use the like scary or anxious energy that some people are feeling right now and are channeling it into this new exciting thing. And like we kind of did that launching season 2 of the show as well. Like we launched right at the start of COVID, season 2. And we just said, we're gonna record remotely. We'll figure out our audio quality. Like there's ways to do it for sure. There's tons of technology out there now. And because right now more than ever, talking to local businesses, small businesses, startups about how they're conquering this during COVID. Like this is the best time than ever to talk to those startups and hear their secrets and hear their tips. And that's what the show's for. And so we said, we can't not do our part to continue producing the show, because right now people need to hear from their fellow startups who are going through the same challenges of like, what resources are they using and what are they doing to pivot? And so I feel lucky to be on the side of that quote that you read. Where I'm able to adapt and channel that energy. I honestly I feel a bit bad for people who can't, because it's just like, it's their mindset, it's where they're at right now mentally to be able to do that or not. And it's I'm sure really hard work to go from one side to the other, to change the way that you think, to change how you feel about that negative energy, or those anxieties. But if I'm on the other side of it, then it's like, at least I can use that for good, right? And I can use my energy that's positive to channel it to help even more people. And that's what I'm trying to do.
I think that's a great perspective, and certainly there's empathy and concern. There's lots of companies in Manitoba, all over the country and over the world that won't necessarily come out of this unscathed. But there's going to be opportunities outside of that. There's people that are making things happen, and that was the whole point of us connecting. Was we wanted to shine a light on the positive things that are coming from such a crazy time, right? Because they're all we can control at the end of the day is what we can control, and I think you're doing an amazing job. I appreciate what you're sharing. I think there's one other thing that we had talked about when we connected last week, and it was with all the routine changes, and you had mentioned that you'd found like some of the not having to run around everywhere, a little bit cathartic. There is some good that comes from that. What are some things that you're going to do different going forward, or you intend to do different going forward after learning about what this period of time is, where the whole world is pretty much pausing and you've gotten a chance to reflect and look at your routines? How do you think you're going to do some things different?
Yeah, Daryl, it's wild. Like I was literally the one extreme. Like people were, would say things to me like, I feel like you're at every event. And I think I was, but I love that lifestyle. Like I gained energy from it, like I kind of mentioned earlier, but now it's interesting. Like I'm working out way more. I'm going for walks outside and enjoying outside way more. I'm eating healthier because I have more time to cook for myself because I'm not running from one event to the next. But partly I'm finding joy in the downtime. But I think partly it's because I know I'm not missing anything else. And I thought about that since our last call, Daryl, because part of me thought, maybe I don't need to be at everything and I'll still really be happy. But I'm not at everything, but no one else is either. And so I thought that was really interesting. And that's that layer that didn't kind of click when we just kind of mentioned it briefly in passing, because like I have a feeling that no matter how good I feel right now with the extra exercise and the better eating and the not feeling so rushed from one thing to the next, I have a feeling that I'm gonna go back to farther the other direction, even though I feel great right now and I'm reading more and all this stuff, because I think otherwise I'll feel like I should have been there. I missed out. That was a chance to meet that person I've been trying to meet, or whatever it is, right? Like that go-getter attitude, I don't think will naturally go away. So, but I think it's interesting because it's given you that time to feel that it's okay to take more time for yourself.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that I find myself a little bit in between in the future. Like somewhere
that's honest.
I am now.
That's really honest. You know, I've pledged to have 3 meals a day with the family, that, you know, we're not going to go on vacations. We'll do staycations. We found all this joy from it. But,
wow.
You know, I think, to your point, I think what we've realized is the other stuff doesn't dictate the happiness, right? The joy wasn't eliminated from the other stuff going away. All we did was find joy in a different way. But leaving here, we're going to continue to do whatever is right for us, you know, as we leave here. And that's what I hear you saying. And if it means,
I think you're totally right. My curiosity will be like, if that's the case, and now I found joy without getting, you know, Starbucks all the time, or without getting like these treats that cost money, and these activities like dining out so often that costs money, and drinking out that costs a lot of money, and things like that. And so now I wonder, like, will, you know, we go back to that broader question of the economy, and if those people that were out all the time have found some happy medium that's lesser in communities like Winnipeg, where restaurants are sometimes tricky to open as it is, will we see you know, a bit of a tough period there? You know, it's a bigger conversation about the whole economy, and
sure.
It's interesting. And part of me feels like I need to start going out again just to support local, you know, like part of it is me, and part of it is like, I love these things. I used to love these things, and I'm not going to stop loving them. And so maybe I'm responsible to go out to spend money at them so that we can still have them, even if it's only 50% of the time that I used to go, you know? So yeah.
I like how you take responsibility for everything, Margaux.
I need to do it. Yeah. Hey, I think it's like, there's so many books out there now, right, about like extreme ownership, and like, it's not me going to a business that's keeping it alive, but if enough of us have that mindset, then hopefully, you know, we can help the community stay thriving after all this is done.
Absolutely. I really like your community mindset and what you've shared here. So Margaux, how can we find out, you know, about the podcast, you know, and about all the other great things that you're doing? You did mention that I think it was 18 Terracon places where we can go to drop off hardware, screens. And I know some people, including myself, who can take advantage of that right away. So thank you for sharing that. What about your podcast and anything else you want anyone that watches this to know about how to see what you're doing?
Awesome. Yeah. So the podcast is called Start Podcast. And because it's a familiar set of words, the best way to find us is going to our website, startpodcast.ca. And then right on the main page, there's all the links to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. Like, we're on all of them. That's the best way to find the links, startpodcast.ca. And we, as far as my daily work and all the tech events and training and things like that, it's at techmanitoba.ca. And otherwise, I'm on all social platforms, Margaux A. Miller. And Margaux is spelled crazy. It's probably on the screen here, but MARGAUX, and then another A, and then Miller, on all platforms. So happy to connect with everybody and chat about what you're doing in the community, or if you have any ideas from what we talked about. Stronger together, right? Stronger together.
You're amazing, what you're doing and who you are. Appreciate you making the time, Margaux, and
thanks, Daryl.
And enjoy the time alone. It doesn't sound like it's going to last too long.
been great. We'll get through it. Yeah.
We'll get through it. Yeah. Thanks for being with me.
Thanks so much.